gotcha.
One of the most disturbing elements of the Prohibition War is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows the futility of prohibition and reaches out to educate the community and current law enforcement. Today, the Russ Belville Show visits with another speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition with one clear message: cops say legalize drugs.
Welcome back, everyone. 31 after the hour, and today in Cops Say Legalize Drugs, we've got a very special guest joining us, Sean Perez from the great state of Connecticut. Sean, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And Sean, let me see if I've got this correct. Is it true that you are a current Connecticut police officer?
Yep.
Wow.
I'm active.
We're having a little trouble hearing you there, Sean. Do you have any way of turning your side up a bit?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to set up my phone. I just took out the case. I know some people say they can hear me.
I got you better now. That sounds great. So, where are you serving right now? Is this state police, local police?
It's local municipal police.
No, municipal police. Okay, and, this is rare for me. Usually when I do this interview every couple of weeks with members of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, but I think you may be the first active police officer I've spoken to. Does this bring you any cause for concern? Do you worry about your career being so vocal and advocate for ending prohibition?
No, I see where the country's headed. A lot of people want change, and I feel like I'm going to be the first of many. I don't see myself getting held back or any issues. So
there's been no response from your supervisors or fellow officers negatively about this, or have they supported you?
You know what? A lot have supported me. Most people are just kind of neutral. They just don't really want to know either way or the other. It's just it's a job to them, and they're going to do their job.
I see. So, Sean, what led you to becoming a police officer? What's your background?
My father was a police officer. Before this, I was a florist, But I always wanted to be a police officer, so I went for it and I got it.
Oh, well, fantastic. Now, coming from a family of police officers, had this ever been something you guys discussed around the dinner table? Did Dad ever say, this, pot being illegal, this is stupid? Or, was that ever a concern?
You know what? We used to talk about it in the past. We still talk about it to this day. He's one of my biggest supporters. He's the first person I talk to about everything, just to get his opinion on stuff.
Well, what was some of the things he would tell you about prohibition that led you to this stand?
How it doesn't work, how it hasn't worked, and all the time that it's been in effect, and that he's glad to see change coming, because it's on its way. It'll be here.
Absolutely. Connecticut right up there in the Northeast, one of the many states that have a medical marijuana provision, also recently passed decriminalization. What's the reaction been from police up there with decriminalization? Have they generally supported that?
Yeah, for the most part. It eases up the burden of work, not having to track down minimal offenders, such as, people with small amounts of marijuana. It doesn't tie us up having to bring them back to the station. And, at the end of the day, you take one drug off the street, another person's just going to take a spot. So we need to look into alternative means of getting rid of the issue. And if we could fully legalize, then we could, more benefit off of the sales and the taxes associated with that. Just like Colorado's doing.
Absolutely. All right. So what do you think the timetable is for something like that in Connecticut? Is 2016 too soon for us to be thinking about legalizing Connecticut?
No, it's not soon enough. But I guess they're holding a special session in New York, United Nations. So 2016 sounds about right. I was here in 2 years, a year ago, so, it doesn't sound too far off. But, yeah, I can't really comment on when exactly. You know, but if I had to guess, maybe 2016. You know, maybe we'll go the way of Colorado.
Well, that'd be great. We're speaking with Sean Perez. He's a municipal police officer in the state of Connecticut. And Sean, in your duties as a police officer, have you had to enforce marijuana laws? Have you ever had to bust someone for weed?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and to this day, I still do. You know, it is still, decriminalization doesn't mean that you're not going to get in trouble for it. You know, you get a ticket for it at this point. You know, I still got to give out that ticket if I find marijuana. I mean, there's still things to enforce, still things that affect.
Well, you know, there's sometimes opponents will say with decriminalization, all you're doing is freeing up the consumers of the illegal drug dealers. Has there been any increase? Do you feel people are more lax with their marijuana use and their dealing and selling? Has it increased or decreased any?
No, the fear of marijuana use is still there. People are still, you know, still think they're going to go to jail, and people are still afraid that, you know, it's not like people are out in the streets smoking weed. It's nothing like that. People, you know, it's still a very secret, you know, black market thing.
And as that black market continues to flourish in Connecticut, I imagine like every other state, you've got, you know, big cities with some people who are hardly affected at all by this prohibition and other communities that are greatly affected by this prohibition. Can you speak any to some of the racial divide that's going on in the enforcement of marijuana laws in Connecticut?
You know, I really haven't done too much research into the racial divide, but as far as what I've been able to, you know, look into, Connecticut is actually, as far as racial disparity for arrests, you know, we have like one of the lowest disparity rates compared to other states. You know, so I think Connecticut's pretty progressive in that respect.
That's great to hear. I mean, some places like Minnesota were like 8-1. Washington D.C. was like 9-1. So Connecticut must be pretty low there on that.
Connecticut is pretty diverse. I mean, there's a large black, large Hispanic community. So it's different. You know, other states like Minnesota, they probably have a very big discrepancy as far as, you know, who's you know, blacks, Hispanics, and whites. So it's much easier to target them, you know, because, you know, it's like picking a speck of pepper out of a salt shaker. You know?
Good point. We're speaking with Sean Perez from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and want to remind everyone that LEAP has hundreds of speakers, all former members of law enforcement, prosecutors, prison guards, cops, all sorts of folks. You can find them at leap.cc. They've probably got a speaker in your neck of the woods or in one of 120 countries now, I understand. Check them out at leap.cc. All right, Sean, so as we move forward in Connecticut with legalization, you know, hopefully moving forward in 2016, every other state that's tried this, we've seen a sheriff's association, a chiefs of police association, usually cops, coming out against these things, you know, even though they say they don't make the laws, they just enforce them. Do you anticipate that any of the police organizations, law enforcement organizations in Connecticut would at least stay out of the way if you try to legalize?
You know, I can see them staying out of the way. You know, the attitudes towards marijuana in Connecticut are a lot different from the attitudes in the Rural South. You know, they're very, very, I don't want to say tough. We're not tough, because we are tough. I mean, we take down big distributors and big growing operations. But, you know, the small-time users aren't really who we target. You know, if it's something that's going to be out of control and going to affect the children of our community, then, you know, we'll definitely intervene. But, you know, the small-time people who are just, you know, not causing any effect, you know, that's not who we go after. So I can see Connecticut not having any issues moving forward with legalization.
Excellent to hear.
And I can see, you know, officers trying to stay out the way.
That would be great. I mean, it would be a lot to ask to think that they would support it, even though really they should. But if at least they stay out of the way, that would be helpful. Now, Sean, I was also wondering, with respect to the work you're doing in Connecticut and your work as a law enforcement officer, you guys have been watching what's been going down in Colorado and in Washington State. As Connecticut moves forward, do you see anything that's happening there that you don't want to see happen under Connecticut legalization?
You know, I would like the transition to be easy, you know. because the more pushback there is against it, the more we lose out. I would like Connecticut to maximize the benefit of marijuana legalization.
Yeah, absolutely. And in these proposals to legalize marijuana, oftentimes there is these formulas on how they're going to divvy up the tax money. And in Oregon, we kind of did a progressive thing here and cited that we would give 35% of the tax money to law enforcement. Is that something you'd want to see in a new legalization proposal for Connecticut?
Absolutely. Hold on one second. Absolutely. I think that all the money that is collected in that respect should be, allocated properly. But 35% is a good amount for law enforcement.
All right. And we got a couple of minutes here, and before I let you go, if someone out there is listening that has the typical fears, they worry about their kids if it's legal, they worry about stoned drivers, behind the wheel if it's legal. What would you say to those parents or those folks that just don't think legalization ought to happen?
To those parents, I say, would you rather have your children, first off, your children have easy, unprecedented access to marijuana or any other drug they want. It's easier for them to get marijuana than it would be for them to get alcohol. I could talk to, and I have a lot of young cousins, and I could say at this point right now, go get me a bag of weed, go get me a bag of alcohol. And I'm going to tell you, go give me a bottle of alcohol. And I'm going to tell you that the ones that I tell to go get me a bag of weed are going to come back way quicker than the ones that tell to give me a bottle of alcohol. So, it's much safer if you allow the states, and the government to regulate instead of prohibit. Then at that point, they won't.
And how about the effect of marijuana on driving? Is that something that worries you as a law enforcement officer?
What we need to do is find a way to easily test people who have recently smoked instead of people who smoked 2-3 days ago. Right now, we don't have a method of testing immediate use. So that's definitely some technology we need to look into. Yeah,
there's Oregon State is going to be looking at that. That was part of our legalization proposal, was to fund some scientific studies on that. And as you correctly note, everything we have now just tells you that you have smoked pot, but not recently, or that you're impaired. So we appreciate your honesty on that issue. Sean Perez is a police officer in Connecticut and a member of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Sean, thanks so much for speaking out as an active duty officer. We need many more of you.
Thank you so much.
All right. When we come back, we've got the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. We'll follow that up with a radical rant. Who's gonna FUBAR 2016? Ohio or California? Or maybe both? Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.